Okay, so let's take a look at some of the assessments that you have on Deshaun so that we can fill this form out, because this will help guide your discussion with Denise. And one of the things that we try to do is to think about what the child currently controls and what we think they need to control next based on your data. This common language part of things will get filled out with Denise when you meet with her, because you'll agree on what language you'll use to instruct him or to teach him the first time around, whatever this is that you guys agree that he needs to control next.
Okay.
So what guided reading level is Deshaun at right now?
He is reading at a J.
Okay. All right, so you've got his running record here, his most recent running record. And what did you notice while you were taking a look at this?
As we were looking at it, a lot of the mistakes that he made, many of them were very visual.
Mm-hmm.
They looked very similar. He would just change a few vowels in there to make them fit, but yet none of it really made sense as he was reading, and that had gone on through the entire process.
Okay. So then I'm going to give you this so that you can fill this out while you're going. If you want pen or pencil, that's up to you. So one of the things that he currently controls based on the running record was that he's using his visual information to solve words, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then I also heard you say that he wasn't using meaning to make sure that it made sense. Do you think that if he could incorporate meaning into what he was reading, that would help improve his understanding of the text?
Yes, because then I think it would help with his comprehension. If he had understood what some of those words were, it would definitely help with that.
Okay, so go ahead and you can write that on that one. To use meaning when coming to an unknown word.
Yes.
And obviously we're going to help him keep that visual information going. So it's just to incorporate the meaning into it, not just, we don't want to focus on meaning all by itself, because we don't want him to rely on just meaning then either. If he's using just one source of information, that's not going to help him. But because he's got the visual, if we add the meaning into it, and because he's already thinking about, he can already, grammatically what he says is correct. So his structure is already in place.
Right.
So to think about that. Okay. Anything with comprehension that stands out, or do you think that by focusing on what he's reading, that's probably going to help him improve his comprehension?
Yeah, I think if he starts understanding the meaning as to what the paragraphs were about, that his comprehension will definitely start coming into play, because he had a really hard time understanding comprehension on this, and I think it was because of the words that he was using visually. Mm-hmm. So once we get the meaning down and the visual, I think he will very definitely, that comprehension skill will start coming up.
Awesome. Okay. So should we think about the writing then? What kind of writing do you have for him?
Well, we have a couple different things. We've been doing just journaling in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've also done writing to a prompt from a story.
Okay, well, let's look at this one first.
Okay, in this sample we were reading Arthur stories, and I wanted them to pick a character from the book and write why they would be their friend, which one they would choose and why it would be their friend. And so he chose Buster.
Okay. I like Buster because he's funny, he grows up and he looks funny.
So not a whole lot of adding into there, any spicy words or anything like that.
Was this hard for him to do?
It was very hard. And he chose Buster right away, and then I had to ask him why he chose this character, and he said because he was funny. So he went back to his desk and he wrote because he's funny, and then he came up and he goes, I don't know what else to write. So I had to keep prompting him to say, give me some more information. Why did you choose him? Why would he be your friend? And then he added a couple things, and by the time he got back to his desk, he ended up writing, he grows up and he looks funny.
So he had other things in mind to write just besides he grows up and looks funny, but he couldn't remember them by the time he got back to his desk?
Correct.
Okay. One of the things that we sometimes use is this checklist, and this is writing in response to reading, and he would be over here at this transitional level. And so one of the things that we can do is to look through this checklist and to see what things that he's doing. However, because I'm looking at what he wrote and by what you described, I'm thinking that this one is too hard for him. So I'm thinking that we go over here to see what things that we can do to bring him up. Because his reading is definitely lagging behind his writing is lagging behind his reading. We need to bring that writing up. Okay. So we were talking about the composing strategy. Does he reread?
Usually not.
Okay.
You know, he will just keep writing. He will just keep writing, or he will just make a new sentence after that instead of going back and looking at it, which kind of goes along with that too.
Mm-hmm. I'm actually going to go back one more page here because I know that on this one with this comprehension with the composing things, that he rehearses his response and holds language in memory while transcribing his message. This seems to be one of the areas that you're noticing is difficult for him. He's having trouble with that.
Yes, because he can rehearse it to me, but cannot get back to his desk in order to write it down.
Okay, because if we look at this one, he seems to have some of his high frequency words, you know, like he, up, and, funny. He's got those. The practice page is something that we may want to think about too, is to have him try that with some words. He can say words slowly and record the beginning and the ending, right?
Yes.
Some middle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But that's probably where he gets, the middle sounds are more tricky, right?
Right. The beginning and ending he can pretty much get. It's just those, he might just throw in an A when it should be an O or something like that.
Well, it's good he's trying a consonant. He knows that he's got, he's trying a vowel. We'll help him sort that out too. That might come up in our word work part of things.
Okay.
Familiar word parts. He's kind of phonetic, but he's also a little visual. He's throwing E's on the end of words.
Right.
Thinking about the visual. So these two right here are kind of standing out. He responded to the prompt.
Mm-hmm.
He composes simple sentences. I like Buster. He's got a noun and a verb.
Mm-hmm.
Not any prepositional phrases, though. Did use and. He goes up and he looks funny. So he's got some of this started.
And no punctuation.
No
and
punctuation.
And one capital letter.
Yeah. So we've got a few things that we could notice or work on about him, but let's worry about let's write what he can do first. So in the writing, right, he was able to respond to the prompt.
Correct.
He could write to the prompt. And is this information that really did happen in the story?
The funny part.
Yeah.
But he did not grow up. It's a part of it.
Okay, so he's pulling in some evidence from the text. So then out of this checklist as to what he needs to control next, we were looking at these two comprehension things. You were also noticing his spelling, which I think that will come out here in the orthographic behaviors, and the practice page. So out of using a practice page, rehearsing his story, or rereading conventions, what do you think is probably what he needs to control next?
Well, I would probably say rehearsing and rereading in order to start getting a little bit more information in his writing.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. So what are you thinking about how you can help him to do that?
Well, again, because he'll come up and orally tell me, so I can have him repeat it a few times, making sure that it is short enough for him to remember by the time he gets back to his desk, and then going back and checking to make sure he held on to it long enough. Otherwise, we could talk about shortening his sentences, making 3 words instead of 4 or 5, depending on how much he's actually holding before he gets back to the desk to put it down.
Yeah, once you know how much you can control in his memory, then you can work on that, and then you can work at expanding that. We'll work at making his message even longer. So then, if we think about the orthography or orthographic behaviors, If we look at some of his writing, let's take a look at this now. That's going to help us. This is his journal. Let's see here. I like playing the game with my brother. We play Sonic Racing, and I always win, and he always push me on the game, and he always, because the game gives
a ladder.
And I always get it. Oh. Okay, so if we think about some of the patterns that we're noticing and some of the things that he's able to write, what I noticed about is that he was able to do the play, and I know that, I think the play-in is probably his dialect.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree?
I would. And even stay and play.
Okay, so he's got that long A pattern. And he's got the long A pattern here for game, A, but always. So he's not transferring, he's not sure when to do the AY or the A consonant E. So I'm wondering if in your word work that you could do some chunks with him and helping him to visually discriminate when we use one, when we use the other, or also even that practice page, if we know the word is always, then if he tries it on his practice page, it could either be this way or this way, and then he can choose one. Like the have a go spelling sheet,
Right.
have you ever seen one of those? Mm-hmm. So that if he can try that one way, try it the next way, and then he can pick what one he thinks is better after he's done writing.
And then he can visually, because he's so visual, he can visually see which one would look the correct way.
Right. So he currently controls the long A. Mm-hmm. And what we need him to control next, I would think, is to maybe that have a go sheet after he's done writing, to give it a go another time. And he probably also, I noticed a circle here. Are you teaching him to circle words that don't look right?
Yes. But that one was 2 words, and it is right, so.
Yeah. So that might be another thing you might want to think about is with the have a go sheet, they have to have a word circled to go. And we may need to help him with some more lessons about, what we circle and what we don't.
Okay.